Hello and welcome back to this episode of your Kingsport blog video update. I'm Jeff Fleming, City Manager of Kingsport, and I'd like to run down the Board of Mayor and Alderman agenda from our most recent meeting just to give you an update on what's going on. We heard an update on Kingsport Parks and Recreation. Kitty Frazier did a really great job of summarizing all the many wonderful facilities and programs that we have. If you have a civic club who may be interested in hearing that program, I would encourage you to contact Kitty. She'd be happy to share that information with you. But it's when you sum it all up, it's pretty amazing what all we have to offer here in Kingsport. We also heard an update on the Brickyard Park ball fields, and assuming that the weather holds out, we are on track to have play this spring. There's always the caveat that if we have a really wet spring, there might be some delays, but we're certainly working to make sure that we control all the things that we can humanly control in that situation. We heard an update on the annexation plan of services reports. We had just attended a Tennessee Municipal League meeting yesterday in Johnson City, which is the regional meeting to talk about the upcoming legislative session in Nashville. And of course there's a lot of discussion about annexation and the changes in the laws. And a lot of that ties back to the provision of services, which we call the plan of services. Based on the remarks yesterday across the state, some cities may not take the plan of services as seriously as we do here in Kingsport, and for really as long as I can remember, we've always done a report on each annexation area to illustrate our progress in the provision of services. And also, to my knowledge, we've never missed a plan of services deadline. In many cases, we're very much ahead of the game when it comes to provision of services. I had a phone call from a fellow in Colonial Heights over the weekend and was asking about a streetlight installation, and I got a response back from our traffic engineer that the ultimate limit to provide those services is 5 years, but we strive to provide them much earlier, so we do fully expect that those will be installed here within that much less of the time frame that's legally required. And as a result, this person will be able to stop paying his individual payment for a security light because he will have a public street light on his street. Also, we made provisions to purchase the Byerly property, which is about 17 acres that is located adjacent to John B. Dennis Highway, adjacent to the Greenbelt. If you're familiar with the Greenbelt and you walk very often out there, you'll know there's a one-lane bridge that crosses Reedy Creek. On the other side of that bridge, on the south side of Reedy Creek, is the Byerly property. We are buying that for stormwater and wetlands protection purposes. When we developed the aquatic center, we promised to acquire on a willing buyer, willing seller basis floodplains and wetlands that became available in the Reedy Creek or Horse Creek floodway and floodplain as they did become available if we could agree to terms on price. So we did agree on the price with the Byerlys at $15,000 an acre, and it will actually give us control of all of the property south of Reedy Creek between John B. Dennis and the bluff that leads up to the intersection of Center Street and Memorial Boulevard. So we do have hopes one day of having a pedestrian connection that folks will be able to walk down from, say, the Great Body Company or that key intersection in town and access the Greenbelt without having to drive and park over in the vicinity of Stone Drive. We also heard a proposal, and the board approved signing a letter of commitment to First Baptist Church. We're beginning the West Sullivan Street widening and improvement project. Bids were in the paper this past weekend, and so we expect that project to be fully complete or near complete by the time the Fun Fest parade is held in the midsummer. As part of that project, we have to remove the traffic signal that's located at the intersection of Sullivan Street and Clay Street. That traffic signal is adjacent to First Baptist Church. First Baptist Church is going through a major expansion where they're going to be building on the lower part of their parking lot, which is going to push much of their vehicular parking across the street to 2 additional lots that they have now acquired, and it's going to cause a lot more pedestrian activity on Sullivan Street. So obviously they're very concerned about the safety of their preschoolers and their senior members that are going to be trying to use that crosswalk to access the church. we believe that the installation of a raised pedestrian crosswalk, which is what we're proposing, will solve the need or serve the need for the church at that location, and also balance the needs of the traveling public. It's the same kind of raised crosswalk that was installed on Clinchfield Street near the Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing. It's kind of in the curve of Clinchfield Street where you would go into the entrance of RCAM, or the Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing. In order to kind of show leadership with First Baptist and also show good faith, we said, hey, let's try the raised crosswalk, and if it doesn't work, we can come back within 6 months of completion of your construction project, and we can reinstall the replacement traffic signal. So we will set aside funding as part of the project. Hopefully we won't have to go back and use that funding, and we won't have to go back and install that traffic signal. But if we do, we have set the parameters by which that decision would be made. So the church is happy, and our board's happy, and I think it's a very good compromise solution for all parties involved. The board also sent a very clear message that they would like, if there's any way possible, to include in the project the repaving of Church Circle itself. So we estimate that's going to cost about $50,000, and so hopefully if we don't have to use this traffic signal money, we'd be able to use that for that purpose. But we're going to sharpen our pencil and see if there's not ways we can save money in this project and also include the just repaving of Church Circle. The library has renovated a couple of spaces for workspace and collaboration inside the library, and they've asked for some very nominal fees for commercial use of those sites if you want to reserve them. There's no charge to the public, no charge to nonprofits, but if for some reason a business wanted to reserve those spaces, there would be a very nominal charge of $5 or $15 depending on the space. We also approved the sidewalk installation on the two bridges over the Holston River and the sluice. This is to comply with TDOT regulations. There will be a rail added to the bridge so that if someone's walking or riding a bike across the bridge, they're not going to accidentally tumble over the side and fall into the river. There will also be sidewalk specifications that TDOT requires that will raise the sidewalk up a little bit to separate it from traffic. To the general public, there's probably no understanding that it's not complete at this point, but technically the pedestrian part of the connection from Eastman's Corporate Business Center all the way out to the Aquatic Center and the Y, those are the two gaps. And so once we get those completed, we will have that project finished. And all of that is being paid for with money that comes from the state and federal government. So when we follow TDOT's guidelines, we also receive TDOT's funding to actually implement it. So it is a good leveraging of that relationship. We approved an interlocal agreement with the 911 board, which is technically called the Emergency Communications District, that will specify how the new facility on Unicoi Street will be managed. The 911 board saved money for years and years, and they actually paid cash for that building. So they've paid for the building. They're going to pay for some of the maintenance and upkeep. We will pay for the employees, and it's just a great partnership between the Emergency Communications District and the police and fire departments to make sure that we do all that we can to make sure our public is safe. We finalized a lease agreement with the Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority that will allow them to apply for a grant, an $11 million grant, to begin the process of building new housing on what is now the Lee School property, sometimes called Core Cox, sometimes called DB Excel. But it's basically between Sevier and Myrtle Streets, directly across from Lee Apartments. This does not set in motion the demolition of Lee Apartments, but it is hoped that by taking this first step, we will be able to come back and continue the modernization efforts for Lee Apartments that are very similar to what you saw over in the Riverview area of Kingsport. Finally, and I think probably most importantly, we did a bond refund. In our personal world, we call that refinancing, but in the city government finance world, it's called refunding. We took our outstanding bonds and we constantly examine them to see if there's a better interest rate. Our debt management policy says that if you can have more than 3% savings in net present value, that you should proceed to look at refunding the bonds. So the board did that last night, and we are expecting that will save about $1.44 million over the life of those bonds. So we're pretty excited about the fact that we're saving public money. And it's also an indication that our public finance staff is constantly looking for ways to make better use of funds and lower our debt payments and lower our interest rate. Historic Zoning Commission, we reappointed, excuse me, on the Historic Zoning Commission, we reappointed members Jim Henderson. On the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, Hiram Rash. The Kingsport Housing and Redevelopment Authority, appointed Linda Calvert, and then finally on the Visitor Enhancement Program appointed C.G. McCord. So if you're interested in serving on one of our boards, commissions, or committees, I would encourage you to contact the mayor's office and express that interest. But we couldn't do what we do without all the fine volunteers that we have here in our community. That's your quick update. Again, I'm Jeff Fleming, and you can follow me at kingsportblogger.com if you would like interim updates in between. Thank you.